Chapter 1670. All right. Cole did not even have to think before he agreed. After agreeing, Cole was a little puzzled. He was not puzzled why he agreed, but puzzled that not only did he agree, he even wanted to add, "You don't have to return the money." What puzzled him the most was that he did not dare to say what he wanted to add. He did not know why, but he seemed to know that this young girl in front of him, under her polite and distant appearance, had a strong sense of rejection towards him. If he displayed too much intimacy and friendliness, she would immediately hide far away. So if he still wanted to see her, he could not cross certain boundaries. Even though they did not know each other, he knew very well where those boundaries that could not be seen or touched were. This was very strange, really very strange. Thinking about this, Cole's gaze towards Gu Mengmeng deepened. But Gu Mengmeng did not have the heart to care about what Cole was thinking. Her gaze was fixated on the two people on the arena. Clearly, Elvis had also recognized his opponent. His face, which had been cold to everyone other than Gu Mengmeng for thousands of years, actually cracked into a smile. But that smile was so eerie that it made people shiver in fear. The reason why the audience bought tickets was to witness Elvis's breathtaking, instant kill. But the situation changed because of his opponent's appearance. Elvis did not seem to be in a hurry to end the battle as quickly as before. Instead, he started torturing his opponent on the arena as if he was having fun. It was not wrong for him to promise not to hurt his opponent easily. But this did not include the fact that his opponent had hurt Gu Mengmeng before, and had almost broken her neck. Elvis squeezed his opponent's shoulder blades forcefully, causing his opponent's arms to hang limply by his side. His pained cry made the audience extremely excited because of the bloody scene, but it did not evoke any pity from Elvis. Then, Elvis raised his leg and crushed both of his knees, causing him to lose all interest in life like a puppet with its strings cut. Elvis grabbed his neck and lifted him up. When their eyes were at the same level, his azure blue eyes squinted and he instinctively bared his teeth. His opponent's eyes were already filled with red veins and were even bulging slightly. His limbs did not have any ability to resist and he could only let Elvis deprive him of air bit by bit, putting him to death. He had seen Elvis's previous match and knew how strong of an opponent he was. Hence, he did not expect to leave this arena alive. But he did not understand why Elvis did not finish him off cleanly like how he did with his previous opponent. Instead, he deliberately tortured him with hatred, as if he wanted him to clearly feel his life slipping away every second before he died. Had he ever offended someone like this Shura before? Hubby. Gu Mengmeng pushed open the window on the second floor and called out softly. Although the people around the arena were making a ruckus, the Beast King's hearing was extremely good. Moreover, Elvis had always been sensitive to Gu Mengmeng's voice, so he naturally would not miss her call. Releasing his grip, Elvis threw his opponent, who was limp like a puddle of mud, onto the ground and went up to the second floor without looking back. Chapter 1671. In the eyes of the audience, the dying man was not a life, but a flaw in the competition. It was as if his death was supposed to be the climax of the day, but it ended abruptly, which was rather disappointing. But after all, the outcome had already been determined. Even if it was an underground boxing match, there was no rule that said one had to be killed to end the match. Moreover, the Wolf King had already left. Their grumbles could not change that man's mind. So although it was a pity, the audience still gradually left under the guidance of the staff. After all the irrelevant people had left, Elvis carried Gu Mengmeng down from the second floor. Other than the 4 men from the Gu family, Cole also followed behind. That scene was a little strange. Those 5 men clearly had the aura of a king, but they were willing to become stars because of that woman, just to hold her in their palms and shine with her brilliance. In this scene, the petite figure became the finishing touch, causing people to involuntarily focus their gazes on her. Cole glanced over and someone moved a small sofa over and placed it on the stage. The blood had long been wiped clean, but the smell of blood lingered for a long time. Gu Mengmeng sat on the small sofa, looking at the man lying on the ground and the trembling woman kneeling beside him like a queen. Is it worth it? Gu Mengmeng asked this question without any head or tail. The man raised his head with difficulty and met Gu Mengmeng's eyes. He was a little dazed, as if he knew the woman in front of him, but could not remember when he had seen her before. Strangely, even if the other party's words were without head or tail, he seemed to understand what she meant. Although it was difficult, he still curled his lips and looked at the woman kneeling beside him. He tried his best to smile and said, "For my own woman, nothing is not worth it." Gu Mengmeng gave a helpless chuckle. Some people were just like that. No matter how much time had passed, that infatuation, that foolishness would never change. So, Gu Mengmeng shifted her gaze to the woman beside him and asked in a seemingly nonchalant manner, "This man is already crippled now. I think he will no longer have the ability to take care of you in the future. Not only can he not earn money to repay your debts, he will even become your burden. Why don't we make a deal? You sell him to me, and I'll pay back the $4 million you owe me for you. How about that?" "You? Why do you want to buy him?" The woman seemed to be very afraid of Gu Mengmeng, so much so that even though the man could not even crawl up, she still instinctively hid beside the man, as if that would make her feel safe. Gu Mengmeng prodded herself under her chin, as if she was thinking about a question for a long time. Then, she said, "Nothing much, I guess I'll just cut open my stomach and sell my organs." After all, the risk and cost of transporting live bodies is lower, and the price can be higher. "No, I'm not selling." The woman suddenly took a step forward and opened her arms. She was clearly trembling in fear, but she bit her lower lip to prevent herself from retreating. "I will return the $4 million. No matter what, I will return it. I'm not selling Quentin, not selling." Gu Mengmeng smiled at her reaction. It seemed that his stupidity had not changed. However, she was no longer who she was in the past. If that was the case, they might have a chance to turn things around and not repeat the mistakes of the past. "Oh, then tell me, how are you going to repay that $4 million? Gu Mengmeng narrowed her eyes and probed. Out of topic, yes, that's right. The familiar person who was beaten up was Quentin. Did you guess correctly, my little baby? Chapter 1672. The woman bit her lower lip, then looked up at Gu Mengmeng and said, "Wait a while, just wait a while more. When our children are cured, I am willing to go with you. You can sell me to a sex slave house or sell my organs. As long as I see my children and Quentin safe and sound, I will go with you." "Children?" Gu Mengmeng squinted her eyes and asked softly. The woman seemed to have been touched at the softest spot in her heart. She nodded and said, "Quentin and I have 3 children, but these 3 children were not in good health from the moment they were born. In order to cure them, Quentin and I spent all our savings. My eldest son was found to have kidney failure and had to get a new kidney to save his life. He could not wait for the queue for a kidney source, so I could only pay a high price to buy an underground kidney source for him. That's why I owe a debt of $4 million. You're and Quentin's children?" Gu Mengmeng asked. The woman nodded and looked at Quentin with a gentle gaze. Gu Mengmeng leaned back and smiled softly, saying, "Leah." Leah stiffened his neck and said unwillingly, "I hold grudges very well. It's not a problem to kill him, but to save him, humph. Then who was the one who created the opportunity for him?" Gu Mengmeng's light sentence made Leah lose his temper instantly. Back then, he was the one who deliberately spoiled Nina and spoiled her more and more. He allowed Quentin to lay his hands on Gu Mengmeng and he was the one who appeared at the crucial moment. Even though he had not fallen in love with Gu Mengmeng at that time, but in the end, Nina and Quentin's tragedy was largely due to him adding fuel to the fire. He did not feel guilty. To Leah, other than Gu Mengmeng, everyone else was a chess piece on the chessboard. There was no turning back once he made a move. He did not feel guilty towards Nina and Quentin, but he did towards Gu Mengmeng. So, when Gu Mengmeng said that, Leah could not say anything else. He twitched his lips and walked to Quentin's side, starting to check on his injuries. Nina and Quentin did not understand what she meant and could only look at Gu Mengmeng blankly. The corners of Gu Mengmeng's lips curled up as she smiled. I have to make up for the sins my man has done. Leah will heal Quentin's injuries and we will arrange for professionals to treat your sons. Gu Mengmeng was talking about how Leah had ruined an entire family for his own goals. But Nina and Quentin did not know that. They just thought that it was because Elvis had hurt Quentin too badly that Gu Mengmeng could not bear it. Thank you, thank you. Nina was so grateful that she wanted to grab Gu Mengmeng's hand. But Elvis frowned and raised his leg, wanting to kick. Cole's reaction was faster. He stepped in front of Nina and said, I can arrange a job for you in the boxing arena. It might be a little tough but the pay is not bad. Are you willing? Nina looked up at Cole and nodded hurriedly. I'm willing. Thank you so much. I'm not afraid of hard work. As long as I can make money to treat my son, I'm not afraid of any hardship. Cole smiled and did not say anything else. He just signaled Nina to retreat back to her original position and not go near Gu Mengmeng. Although Nina did not understand why, she still retreated back obediently. Then, she looked at Gu Mengmeng and said, Kind lady, I, Nina, will remember your kindness for life. No matter what you need in the future, I'm willing to be your slave. I will definitely repay you. Aside from the topic, who could guess why Nina and Quentin's children were always in poor health? Chapter 1673. In the future. Gu Mengmeng smiled softly and said, In the future, it's better if we don't meet again. With that, Gu Mengmeng gave Elvis a look and Elvis carried Gu Mengmeng out of the arena. Leah gave Quentin basic emergency treatment and then asked Cole to arrange for someone to send him to Lee's private clinic. Because of Elvis and Quentin's fight, the tickets for the next month's fight were even more popular. Those who managed to buy the tickets were naturally in a good mood, while those who couldn't were full of complaints. Requests for a rematch rose one after another, but no matter how many good wooden combs Cole took out, none of them caught Elvis's eye. He only agreed to fight again next month, as long as that goddess bone comb. Because Gu Mengmeng said that in the beast world, it was actually their family that harmed Nina and Quentin, so she requested Leah to personally treat Quentin's injuries and their child. Leah couldn't reject Gu Mengmeng's request, so even though he was extremely unwilling, he still stayed in the private clinic to treat Quentin's family. It was just that he didn't charge medical fees, but there was an especially strange rule, which was that family members were not allowed to visit. To put it bluntly, it meant that Nina was not allowed to enter his clinic, or else he wouldn't treat her. As for Snake, he was the prince of F country after all. Although it was absurd for him to leave his family matters behind and run to Z country to study in a third-rate university, but his family members couldn't object to it, so they just let him be. But now that he was back, the family matters started to pester him again. After all, he was in charge of the family, who would dare to make decisions on their own? Big and small matters piled up, causing Snake to be unable to attend to them. Gu Mengmeng smiled and told Snake to focus on earning money to support the family. After all, she had just squandered 4 million USD. Snake was the only one in the family with financial resources, so he naturally couldn't slack off. Snake couldn't do anything to Gu Mengmeng, so he could only agree. Then, he sat in the study to deal with the mountain of work. As for Gregory, it was rare for him to take the initiative to speak to Gu Mengmeng, saying that he wanted to visit Quentin at Lee's clinic. Gu Mengmeng was a little surprised. She knew that Elvis and Leah knew Quentin. Snake had shared memories with her, so it wasn't strange that he knew Quentin. But Gregory, Gu Mengmeng thought for a while before realizing that Gregory was a bird and so was Quentin. They were born together on Moda Mountain, how could they not know each other? Nodding her head, Gu Mengmeng said considerately, It's all right, I have Elvis with me. You can go. Just like that, Gu Mengmeng and Elvis had a rare couple time. As for being able to enjoy Gu Mengmeng to himself openly, Elvis was very happy to see it happen. Gu Mengmeng didn't want Elvis to hug her, instead, she held hands like a normal couple. She looked up at Elvis and said, Hubby, strictly speaking, we got married before dating, and then we had a child before we even had any sweet time together. The process was extremely rushed. It's rare that I'm free today. why don't we go on a date? Elvis chuckled and said, that's right, I have been promoted from old godmother to boss, then hubby, but I have never been your boyfriend. But Leah and Snake had been. Chapter 1674. Gu Meng Meng smiled as she tiptoed and kissed Elvis on the cheek. Hey, let's go fill in the blanks today, alright? Alright. Elvis could only give Gu Meng Meng his endless indulgence. No matter what her request was, he would only reply with this one word. Gu Meng Meng leaned her head on Elvis's shoulder. As they walked, she thought about where to go for a date. The cinema did not seem to be a good choice. Most of the movies here were in F country's language and there were no subtitles. Gu Meng Meng and Elvis basically could not understand them. Eating was also not a good idea, because Elvis's appetite was extraordinarily exaggerated. Gu Meng Meng could not bear to let him not eat his fill just to accommodate the atmosphere, but if she let him eat to his heart's content, they might be surrounded by reporters called by their boss for an interview. After thinking about it, Gu Meng Meng finally decided to go to the amusement park. Although it was a little childish, Elvis had never been there before. It was always good to have something new. Although Snake could not accompany them, he had arranged for a private car. So Gu Meng Meng and Elvis were quickly sent to the entrance of the most famous amusement park in the area. Gu Meng Meng bought the tickets and the two of them entered the amusement park happily. Elvis did not really like the crowded atmosphere. The Beast King's hearing and sense of smell were too sensitive. Everything here made him feel noisy and the air was filled with all sorts of strange smells, making him uncomfortable. But looking at Gu Meng Meng's sparkling big eyes, he felt that these discomforts were insignificant and could be tolerated. He wrapped his arms around Gu Meng Meng's shoulders and said in a low voice, there are too many people. Let me protect you so that you don't get separated. Gu Meng Meng nodded and responded with a yeah. Her gaze drifted around and Gu Meng Meng immediately set her eyes on the most thrilling roller coaster in the world. If it was in the past, she would not dare to challenge this kind of thing. But during those years as the messenger of the beast deity in the beast world, she felt like jumping off a building every time she saw Wang Xiaoxin. After a few times, she became more daring. Most importantly, she wanted to see Elvis panicking later on. It would be extremely interesting. Although Elvis had never played it before, he had a rough idea of what it would feel like when he queued up. She queued for a long time, but this did not diminish Gu Meng Meng's enthusiasm. When the safety belt was buckled, Gu Meng Meng was still very excited. Turning her head to look at Elvis, she held his big hand and said in an especially imposing manner, if you're afraid, call me out. I'll protect you, understand? Elvis curled his lips, his expression calm and doting. Should he respond with a cry of panic to satisfy her little desire? All right, in order to coax his precious Xiao Meng, he had long thrown away his pride and whatnot. All right. Elvis replied concisely, before grabbing Gu Meng Meng's little hand, holding it tightly in his palm. The entire roller coaster ride took about 4 minutes. When they returned to the starting point after one round, other than feeling a little dizzy from the spinning, Elvis did not feel particularly scared. Chapter 1675. When the staff came up to help remove the safety belt, Elvis felt his arm being pricked by someone. He raised his head in alarm and looked at the staff who had his cap pressed down to the very bottom. That person revealed an evil smile and said in broken Chinese, "You woman, if you are fine, be obedient." Elvis immediately turned back to look at Gu Meng Meng and realized that she had already been helped down from the other side of the roller coaster by the staff. The staff said that Gu Meng Meng had a heat stroke and needed to rest while taking her away from the staff passageway. Elvis wanted to chase after her but realized that the safety belt was still fastened tightly in front of his chest. He wanted to push the safety belt away but it did not budge at all. Only then did he realize that he could not exert any strength, and the angrier he got, the more dizzy he felt. Even his vision started to blur and he clenched his teeth but could not support his consciousness that was slowly fading away. Only when Elvis had completely fainted did the staff unfasten the safety belt. He turned back and a few people who were pretending to be tourists came over and carried Elvis away. And all these did not attract anyone's attention in the amusement park. When she woke up again, Gu Mengmeng felt weak all over and her eyelids were heavy and dry. She did not even have the strength to lift her head and rub her eyes. You're awake. An unfamiliar man's voice sounded from not far away. Gu Mengmeng turned her head and used her peripheral vision to see a silver-haired man sitting on a European-style armchair not far away. She guessed that he was about 60 years old. He did not look old and instead had the demeanor of a godfather in a gangster movie. The man sat there with his hands crossed and supporting himself with a walking stick. He looked at Gu Mengmeng with a faint smile. His Chinese pronunciation was not good, but it was considered above average among foreigners and he had no problem in basic communication. Who are you? Gu Mengmeng's voice was extremely weak and she panted after saying just 3 simple words. Harold. The silver-haired old man said his name in F language like a gentleman and then translated it in Chinese. You can also call me Harold. Purpose. Gu Mengmeng's physical strength was limited, but she had no choice but to deal with the man to gain more time to regain control of her body. As long as she could move her hands, all she had to do was to scratch her ears and cheeks or beat her chest and the 4 men in her family would immediately appear here. By then, I don't care if you are Harold or Hello Kitty. They would crush you into dregs. I mean no harm. Harold said, I know you are Prince Snake's fiancé and I have no intention of becoming enemies with Prince Snake. So, even though it was a bit abrupt to invite you over, at least I still maintained my gentlemanly demeanor. He meant that he was already doing Snake a favor by putting her on the bed and making her unable to move. What else could he do? Was he going to be locked in the dungeon with a tiger stool and chilly water? Gu Mengmeng laughed coldly and said, when Snake comes, you can explain it to him like this and see if he will listen. Harold did not seem to take Gu Mengmeng's threat to heart. He did not want to be enemies with Snake, but that did not mean he was afraid of him. Otherwise, he would not have dared to target Gu Mengmeng. Making a so what expression, Harold did not continue Gu Mengmeng's words and instead revealed his true motive. As long as you are willing to help me with a small matter, I will naturally send you back with my sincerest apologies. Out of topic, did you guys think that I would obediently hand out sweets just because I was an outsider? How could that be possible? I am so mischievous, but don't worry, the men in our family are all very strong. Anyone who tries to scheme against them will be courting death. Chapter 1676. The threat was obvious. If Gu Mengmeng obediently helped him with this small favor, he would let her go and give her an expensive apology. On the other hand, if she did not agree, then he would not let her go today. Furthermore, when he kidnapped her in the amusement park, everyone was wearing the uniform of the amusement park. Even if Snake found out about the amusement park, it would take him a lot of effort to trace it back to him. By then, she might have disappeared from this world forever. What else could Snake do in a situation where the dead could not testify? Gu Mengmeng smiled softly, without a trace of fear on her face. Harold's words carried a kind of self-evident craziness, arrogance, and even certainty. This was not the first time he had done something like this. Or perhaps, in his eyes, a young and ignorant little girl like her was really easy to scare. But he did not know that the young girl before him had lived for 1,000 years in the other world. This level of threat was really nothing in front of her. Admittedly, Gu Mengmeng did not have the powers of a beast king in the past. She could not use her slender hands to crush this little rascal who was pretending to be deep in front of her. But, her partner could. I wonder what Mr. Harold would like me to help with? Gu Mengmeng said as she tried to move her fingers. Very good, the effects of the drug were gradually fading and her body was slowly regaining its self-control. It's very simple. As long as you can convince the bodyguard that Prince Snake arranged for you to stay under me and become my fighter, I will naturally give you an equivalent reward. Oh, you want to buy my man? Gu Mengmeng used both her hands to support her upper body on the bed. Harold was rather surprised to see Gu Mengmeng sitting up. But when he thought about how he did not want to offend Snake, he drugged Gu Mengmeng a little lighter than usual. Hence, the surprise flashed across his face and did not stay for long. No, no, no. I don't want to buy your man, I just want to buy your bodyguard. Gu Mengmeng chuckled and said, since you want to buy him, why don't you talk to him directly? Pausing for 2 seconds, Gu Mengmeng realized that an undetectable hint of awkwardness flashed across Harold's face. Thus, he understood and said, oh, I did talk to him, but he didn't listen to you at all. Let me guess. You must have used threats and carrots, but he just wouldn't budge. You couldn't do anything to him, so you used me as a breakthrough point, right? Harold coughed twice. Clearly, he felt a little ashamed that he couldn't do anything to a man, so he turned his attention to a little girl. But there was no other way. He wanted that man. Harold had been doing whatever he wanted in the underworld for so many years, but it had been a long time since he had that kind of crazy desire to conquer. He desperately wanted to see this arrogant and sinister man submit to him, become his most humble servant, the most docile servant, and the most vigilant guard. Gu Mengmeng did not miss the fervent look in Harold's eyes. She had seen this look too many times in the past 1,000 years. Raising her slender hand, Gu Mengmeng gently touched her collarbone. She smiled faintly and said, since you want him, you should tell him in person. If you don't even have the courage to face him, how can you do it? Aside from the topic, next episode, Summon Elvis. Was this considered a literary blockage? Chapter 1677. With that, Gu Mengmeng used her fingernails to lightly scratch the mark of the black wolf. A slight prickling sensation accompanied by a ray of white light. Elvis appeared behind Harold like an emissary from hell. Gu Mengmeng smiled softly and did not move at all. She watched as Harold's pupils trembled violently. Many years of living on the edge of a knife had made him more sensitive to danger than ordinary people. The fear in his heart was written all over his face, but he did not have the courage to turn back. The thick smell of blood enveloped his entire body and the cracking sound sounded like someone was moving the joints in his neck in preparation for an attack. The hand holding onto the walking stick had already started to tremble. He took a deep breath and suddenly swung it backwards. There was a button on the walking stick. After pressing it, a sharp blade would pop out from the side of the walking stick. If this full force slash landed, it should be able to slice a person into two. However, the blade he swung out did not touch anyone. He looked behind him in confusion and looked around. He did not believe that his senses would be wrong. The smell of blood was so thick, how could it be an illusion? What happened? You're covered in dirt. Gu Mengmeng's voice rang from the side of the bed. She sounded nonchalant, as if she was not aware that she was being kidnapped. It was as if she was talking to her husband in her own home. Harold suddenly turned back and raised his walking stick with both hands, looking at Gu Mengmeng who was lying on the bed defensively. And with this turn, he also saw that bewitching man covered in blood. The sinister aura around him was like that of a king stepping on thousands of skeletons in hell. The corners of his lips curled up slightly, emitting a cold light like the Grim Reaper's scythe. That pair of azure demonic eyes lifted up slightly, casually looking at Harold's nervous and flustered defense. As if looking at a dead man, he said calmly, he's locked in a strange room. The walls are electrified, so he can't come out. I was worried that something would happen to you but you did not summon me. So I was bored to death and bit a few males who came to my door to kill some time while I was waiting. You transformed? Gu Mengmeng completely ignored Harold. She only used her little hand to wipe away the blood at the corner of Elvis's mouth. She pouted coquettishly and said, so dirty. No. No matter how fierce his murderous aura was, when his gaze met Gu Mengmeng's, there would always be a unique sense of gentleness. Casually transforming in this world will attract trouble. He wasn't afraid of trouble, but he didn't want Xiao Meng to be unable to stay in the world she loved because of the trouble he caused. Therefore, although he could open the door with one claw as long as he showed his true form, he held back in order not to cause trouble for Xiao Meng. Gu Mengmeng understood what Elvis was thinking, so she gave him an approving smile and patted his hand. This little old man wants to buy you. Do you think I should offer a sky-high price to scam him? After I take the money, you come back? Gu Mengmeng's tone was too obviously sarcastic and teasing. When she raised her head to look at Harold again, she could only feel his nervousness, wariness and fear. It was a stark contrast to the two people sitting on the bed, teasing each other affectionately. It was even a little comical. Chapter 1678. The Gu Mengmeng now was no longer the young lady who cried the entire night at the bonfire party during her coming-of-age ceremony when she had just arrived in the beast world. She had faced too much bloodshed in the beast world, so much so that she could think rationally and calmly when faced with life and death. Just like now. Elvis jumped up from the bed and pounced towards Harold. Harold immediately waved the walking stick in his hand and slashed at Elvis with the blade. But he was just a normal person. How could he fight against Elvis, who had the power of a beast king and had been through hundreds of battles? Before he could swing his walking stick halfway, he was already firmly stepped on by Elvis's four limbs. Harold was so shocked that he was tongue-tied. He could not understand how a human could suddenly turn into a huge wolf. The sharp fangs and dripping saliva in front of him magnified his fear infinitely. Only someone who had been squashed by a wolf at such a close distance would understand how terrifying that feeling of near death was. Elvis did not have the leisure to admire his struggle before death. He cleanly bit off his neck and threw his body out of the window. Then, he transformed back into a human, without a single speck of dirt on him. He was naked, with a head of thick black hair casually draped behind him. It was like a cloud dyed with ink, giving off a unique charm. The hideous bloodstains in the room were set off by the gentleness that only belonged to Gu Mengmeng, making it look like two red spider lilies blossoming on both sides of the yellow springs. And he was a fairy standing among the flowers. Dangerous, yet full of temptation. Because of his transformation, Elvis could no longer wear the clothes he was originally wearing. So, Gu Mengmeng casually pulled down the curtains and asked Elvis to tear it into a piece of cloth of suitable size. Then, she wrapped it around her waist to act as a temporary beast-skin skirt. This way of dressing made Elvis feel at ease, much more comfortable than those clothes that restricted his movements. Wait for me here, I'll go settle some things and be back soon. Gu Mengmeng chuckled and asked, do you need me to call Leah over to help you? Elvis shook his head gently, then planted a light kiss on Gu Mengmeng's forehead. I'm your first partner, I must have the ability to protect you independently. Gu Mengmeng knew that males had their own pride. In the beast world, they must have the ability to hunt and defend against external enemies. In modern times, they also needed to have the strength to protect their women. She could not stop Elvis from doing it. He was a wolf, not a pet dog that she kept by her side. She would never keep him on a dog's leash and make him wag his tail at her side. She wrapped her arms around Elvis's neck and kissed him lightly. Be careful. Elvis nodded and kissed her lips again. He told her to lie down and rest for a while. After all, the effects of the medicine in her body had not completely dissipated. After tucking her in, Elvis turned around and left. With Harold's head in his hand, he walked out of Gu Mengmeng's room, leaving bloody footprints behind. Gu Mengmeng did not resist the control of the drug in her body anymore. She relaxed her nerves and slowly fell asleep. When she woke up again, the 4 men in the house had gathered and were sitting by her bed. Drink some water. The moment she opened her eyes, Elvis helped her sit up and sent warm water to her lips, gently moistening her dry throat. Out of topic, to explain, Harold's neck was bitten off by Elvis and his body was thrown out of the window, but his head was still in the room. That was why it was said that he carried Harold's head out. Babies, don't be confused. Why did you say he carried his head after throwing it out? Chapter 1679. Gu Mengmeng sat up and drank some water. Leah walked up to her, cupped her little face and kissed it. I tested your blood just now. It's just a normal anesthetic. You just need to drink more water to metabolize it and you'll be fine. Yeah. Gu Mengmeng nodded. Actually, the effects of the anesthetic had almost worn off and she did not feel much after sleeping. When did you guys arrive? Gu Mengmeng looked at the three men who did not look too good and asked. Snake laughed coldly, asking, when did you hope that we would arrive? Or, did you hope that we would not appear at all? Was he angry? Gu Mengmeng blinked her eyes and looked at Snake's cold smile, feeling a little guilty. How could that be? Just because Elvis is your first partner, you let him do whatever he wants, isn't that right? Snakel interrogated. Gu Mengmeng shrunk her neck. She knew that she would definitely be scolded for not calling all her partners over at the first instance after such a thing happened. Her partners were just that weird. If you had good food to eat, fun to play with or any other good things, it was fine not to call them. But if you didn't call them when you were in trouble and especially when you were in danger, ha 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 ha, come at me if you have any complaints. Elvis hugged Gu Mengmeng in his arms, his entire body exuding a strong aura. He would not allow anyone to criticize or lecture Gu Mengmeng, no matter what she did wrong. Moreover, it was him who did not protect Gu Mengmeng that gave Harold the chance to take advantage of her today. Xiao Meng did not do anything wrong, why did she have to listen to others? Oh, you want to use your status as the first partner to pressure me again? Snake did not budge an inch. In terms of aura, he had been the Beast King for 1,000 years longer than Elvis. How could he lose to a male that he had once scolded as trash? So what if I am? Elvis was no longer the little wolf beast that could not retaliate against Snake. He would not back down in front of anyone when it came to protecting Gu Mengmeng and not letting her suffer. The authority of the first partner cannot be questioned. Does that include letting the female be in danger? Snake was not angry, just a simple sentence that stabbed straight into Elvis's heart. Today, he was the only one here. He should be protecting Xiao Meng with all his might. However, Harold had kidnapped Xiao Meng right under his nose. Clenching his fists, Elvis said coldly, "It's my fault for not protecting Xiao Meng well. What do you want? Come at me directly, don't make things difficult for Xiao Meng." Snake laughed softly and said, "Come for you? Alright, let's see how much raging flames you just received today. Let's see how long it will take for me to wipe this gang off the face of the earth." Elvis did not mind at all and said, "I'll be happy to keep you company." Gu Mengmeng rubbed her temples and said, "Alright, the two of you have not fought for almost 800 years. Is there a need to make such a big fuss over such a small matter today?" Snake frowned and looked at Gu Mengmeng, asking, "Are you blaming me for making a mountain out of a molehill?" Chapter 1680. Snake straightened his body and faced Gu Mengmeng, saying, "Small matter? Then do you know how the three of us came here?" Gu Mengmeng shook her head and looked at Elvis in confusion. Elvis pursed his lips and sighed deeply, saying, "I was handling the matter of receiving the fiery flames in the front hall. Harold's son Kiddo, the man whose arm was broken by me in the first black fist fight, sneaked into your room and tried to hurt you. The tip of the knife touched the mark on your chest and summoned Snake over." Gu Mengmeng was also shocked. She lowered her head and looked again. Indeed, there was a red dot on the head of the snake on her chest. It should be a wound. Snake then continued, "The moment I came over, I saw the dagger stabbing into your heart. Gregory, me, Leah and Elvis, including your own lives, were all hanging by a thread. To you, this is just a small matter, isn't it?" Gu Mengmeng's aura instantly dropped and she said pitifully, "I don't know, of course you don't know." Snake laughed coldly and said, "If you knew, you would have summoned your most trusted first partner back to protect you, wouldn't you? In your eyes, only he is your partner and only he is worthy of your trust. If not for him, you would rather be alone in a state of protection than to summon me or Leah to protect you when you meet with trouble. Huh, just how much trust do you have in him? As long as he is in the same building as you, you believe that he can protect you safe and sound. He is clearly not by your side, but you can still fall asleep defenselessly." Elvis obviously could not stand Snake criticizing Gu Mengmeng like that, but Gu Mengmeng could hear the fear hidden behind Snake's accusation. Pulling Elvis, who was about to explode, Gu Mengmeng opened her arms wide at Snake, gesturing for him to hug her. Although Snake was extremely angry, he was also extremely uneasy. So, without another word, he pulled Gu Mengmeng into his arms and hugged her fiercely. He wished he could bury her in his heart and protect her at all times, so as to quell that fear. You were asleep, and I had to check your breathing every 2 or 3 minutes. I was so afraid that if I came half a second late, the dagger would have pierced your heart. I was so afraid that you weren't asleep but dead. You heartless, bad girl, how dare you protect him? Gu Mengmeng patted Snake's back gently and comforted him. I know I was wrong. I won't do such a heartless thing again. Don't worry, I'm fine now, right? Actually, Snake did not really want to fight with Elvis. He just urgently needed to vent the uneasiness in his heart, otherwise he would go crazy. As for Elvis, perhaps he also needed a battle like this to let his guilt be vented. Liar. Snake scolded softly. You're just a little liar. Your words cannot be trusted. Gu Mengmeng laughed softly. Elvis and Leah had long known that she was a little liar. She thought that at least in front of Snake and Gregory, she could maintain her credibility. Now, it seemed like she had gone bankrupt again. She looked at Gregory with a faint gaze and thought to herself. Yeah, this is the only fruit left. At least in Gregory's eyes, my credit limit cannot be overdrawn anymore. Aside from the topic, from now on, I, Elvis, have become the leader of the triads in F country. There should be applause here. Chapter 1681. After appeasing Elvis and Snake, Gu Mengmeng then turned towards Leah, who had been very quiet all along. This fellow was not behaving like a demon, but his style was not right. Leah, who caught Gu Mengmeng's gaze, then waved his tail and walked seductively to Gu Mengmeng's side. He half laid on Gu Mengmeng's knees and said in a flirtatious and coquettish manner, "You finally remembered me?" Her scalp went numb. Elvis and Snake were both violent men. There was basically nothing that could not be solved with a fight. If there was, then they would fight twice. At most, once the door was closed, Gu Mengmeng would bring them back to the grassland illusion and let them fight to their heart's content. But Leah was different. If he was annoyed, he would definitely torture Gu Mengmeng's body. Sometimes, Gu Mengmeng would rather Leah hang her up and give her a good beating, but Leah would not do it. He would only stop after she remembered it for the rest of her life. Leah, Gu Mengmeng's smile was uglier than crying. She begged for mercy by calling out his mushy nickname, her eyes filled with fawning. Lee's large tail was wagging behind him. The smile on his face was still warm. It did not deepen or lessen because of Gu Mengmeng's fawning. And Gu Mengmeng recognized this smile. He only smiled like this when he was angry. The angrier he was, the warmer his smile was. I promise, this is the last time, really. I'm not going to be alone anymore. Sometimes, Gu Mengmeng would think that if one of the 4 men in her family changed his profession to torture and extort confessions, then Leah would be the best. He did not need any torture at all. He just had to look at you with a smile and you would want to confess. You said the same thing when you jumped off the cliff on the Moda Mountains. Lee's smile did not diminish. His tone was warm and even his eyes were filled with the calmness of the years, but he was secretly bringing up the past. Gu Mengmeng wrapped her arms around Lee's neck and said coquettishly, Leah, it's not good for you to always hold grudges in your notebook. It's already thousands of years ago. Can you not mention it anymore? Leah raised his brows and said with a sorrowful expression, back then, when you liked me, you said that my beauty was unparalleled and unforgettable. Now that we've been together for 1,000 years, you despise me for having lingering fears and bringing up the past again? I didn't. Gu Mengmeng could only explain 3 words before she was interrupted by Leah. You did. Gu Mengmeng really could not explain herself. She knew that she would get into trouble if she didn't call all her men over when she was in danger. No matter how small the danger was, no matter how insignificant, no matter how daunting it was. Even if she sprained her ankle while walking on the road, she should immediately scratch her ears and cheeks, beat her chest and stomp her feet, and call out the 4 men at home to coax her. It was only reasonable for them to take turns to appease her. not to mention almost having a dagger stab into his heart. Gu Mengmeng sighed and looked up at Elvis. "Hubby, aren't you going to say something for me?" Elvis covered his lips and coughed softly. "Xiao Meng said she wanted to call you guys over, but I stopped her. If you have any grievances, then take it out on me." Leah turned to look at Elvis, then at Gu Mengmeng. He lowered his head and said, "I see, then I have nothing more to say." With that, Leah stood up and silently returned to his original spot. The expression on his face was as desolate as one could imagine. It was not a, "I have nothing more to say" expression, but a naked "I feel bitter in my heart but I won't say it" expression. Aside from the topic. Chapter 1682. Leah. Gu Mengmeng could not bear to see her man look so aggrieved and sullen. Other than Gregory, the other three were all at the level of a beast king. Any one of them would be a king who could do whatever he wanted in the beast world. How could she bear to let such a man suffer? Leah smiled bitterly. Publicly, he is the leader. Privately, he is the first partner. I have no right to question his decision. Gu Mengmeng tugged at Lee's hand and said, "It's not like that. Elvis just wanted to use his own abilities to fight for something for me and I chose to believe in him. If it was you today, I would definitely support you like this. You guys have always been the ones taking care of me and doing this and that for me. What I can do for you guys is really too limited. Elvis rarely needs my support, how can I bear to reject him? You can understand me, right?" Leah hugged Gu Mengmeng who was in front of him, then let out a deep breath and said with a hoarse voice, "How many times do I have to say it before you understand? You don't have to do anything at all. Your existence itself is already a blessing to us." Gu Mengmeng hugged Lee's waist back and asked softly, "Then you're not angry anymore?" "Angry?" Leah replied simply, "But other than being angry, I can't do anything to you. I can only bear with it." "Leah." Gu Mengmeng called softly. Leah pursed his lips and asked softly, "You said just now that if I want to do something for you, you will support me unconditionally, right?" "Yeah." Gu Mengmeng replied. Leah smiled and said, "All right, remember this promise first. You little liar, don't go back on your words." With that, Leah kissed Gu Mengmeng's forehead before letting go of her. Gu Mengmeng had a premonition that this promise of hers was equivalent to selling herself out. She did not know what kind of tricks Leah would come up with in the future. But now, this matter was finally settled. Heaving a sigh of relief, Gu Mengmeng hung back into Elvis's arms and looked up to ask, "I heard you and Snake talking about something called Furious Flames?" Elvis nodded and replied, "According to them, it is the largest underground gang in F country with the widest area of influence and strong abilities. I just took over this gang and now I am the leader of Furious Flames." Gu Mengmeng widened her eyes and looked at Elvis in surprise. She had only slept for one night and her husband had turned into a gang leader? Elvis felt a little uncomfortable under Gu Mengmeng's stare. He cleared his throat and explained, "Xiao Meng, I need to have the ability to protect you so that what happened today won't happen again." "So?" Gu Mengmeng knew that Elvis had misunderstood her, so she wrapped her arms around his neck and chuckled. "I'm not unhappy, I'm just curious how you managed to control such a gang in such a short time." Elvis smiled. Seeing that Gu Mengmeng was not angry at him for deciding to take over the fiery flames on his own, Elvis felt much more at ease. He then heaved a sigh of relief and relaxed his entire body. As long as she was not, he was B, Mengmeng, he. Face. Chapter 1683. By the way. Elvis looked at Leah and said, "He is now the second leader of the Fiery Flames and will be in charge of the internal affairs of the Fiery Flames in the future. Everything that needs to be decided will be decided by him and I will only be in charge of taking action." Gu Mengmeng burst into laughter. She looked at Elvis and then at Leah, saying, "So, the two of you have applied Saint Nazir's management model to Fiery Flames, and are completely treating Fiery Flames as a tribe?" "More or less." Elvis nodded and said, but the fiery flame seems easier to manage than Saint Nazir. Because there are no troublesome females here. Gu Mengmeng nodded in agreement. The men in her family always had more ways to deal with males. Leah composed himself and sat back beside Gu Mengmeng while wagging his tail. He smiled seductively and hooked Gu Mengmeng's chin, saying, "Mengmeng, when I was understanding the internal affairs of the fiery flames just now, I discovered something very interesting." Gu Mengmeng tilted her head and looked at Leah, waiting for him to continue. Lee's gaze shifted to Snake and he said, "Although the fiery flames is the biggest gang in F country, they are controlled by others in many aspects. Because a gang of the scale of the fiery flames is not willing to become the claws of the royal family, and the royal family, who consider themselves to be noble and virtuous, will not be willing to submit to an underground gang, so the two parties are in a stalemate. But now that Elvis and I have taken over this gang, it will be our Gu family's business. His Highness will take care of it, right?" Gu Mengmeng followed Lee's gaze to look at Snake and burst out laughing. She pinched Leah and said, "So you want Snake to abuse his power and use his official position for personal gain?" Leah shook his head and looked at Gu Mengmeng. Leah nodded in agreement and said, "Isn't it an unchanging theory that having someone in the government makes things easier? Moreover, even though Elvis and I are in charge of the fiery flames, since when have you not been in charge of our family's business? If he were to restrict the fiery flames, he would be blocking your path to riches. I don't believe that our Prince Snake would do such a treacherous thing." Gu Mengmeng sighed deeply. She understood. This was the treaty of treason that she had just signed. She said that if Leia wanted to do something for her, she would definitely support him. It came true so quickly. Snake did not feel that there was anything wrong with it. The reason was simple. If he cooperated with the fiery flames, it would mean that the fiery flames would not have to submit to the royal family, and the royal family would not have to rely on the fiery flames. Both powers would be under Gu Mengmeng's control. Everything in this world should belong to Gu Mengmeng, so he felt that there was nothing wrong with it. He said lightly, "You have to keep a low profile when you do things. Don't push Tu Meng to the limelight." "Of course." Leo waved his large tail and, coincidentally, landed in Gu Mengmeng's arms. Gu Mengmeng hugged Li's large tail and stroked it twice. She also felt that it was strange and smiled. How did she carelessly facilitate the collusion between the government and the bandits in F country? It felt like a dream. From today onwards, Xiao Meng and all her family members will move in here. "Snake, do you have any questions?" Elvis asked as the first partner. Snake shook his head, indicating that there was no problem. This was the rule of the beast world. Females should stay in the territory of their first partner. Chapter 1684. If it was said that Gu Mengmeng could not understand the concept of taking over the fiery flames in the small room, then when the four men from the Gu family accompanied Gu Mengmeng out of the room, Gu Mengmeng deeply understood the meaning of dark shock. The place that Harold lived in was a very typical European castle. Calling it a villa was not enough to describe its grandeur, it was more like the castle that the ancient European nobles lived in. From the architectural style and size, it was even more magnificent than the one in Snake's house. After all, the royal family had their own rules. No matter how rich you were, you could not live in a more luxurious place than the president. So even though Snake's family was like the sun in the sky, they still maintained a low profile on the surface. But Harold was different. The Fiery Flames was originally the king of the Mafia Empire, so his residence was extremely luxurious in all aspects. Every detail tried to show off his authority as the godfather of the underworld. But this old godfather, who had commanded the world for decades, had offended someone he should not have and ended up in such a pitiful state. Otherwise, he could have continued being the underground king in this building. Not talking about Harold anymore, Gu Mengmeng just felt that she could not help but want to lift up her dress and run around in her crystal shoes as she walked in this building, as if she was a European princess. Looking at Gu Mengmeng's expression, the four men behind her could not help but smile. There was no other reason. If she was happy, it meant that the whole family was happy. If she liked it, it meant that the whole family liked it. Pushing open the main door of the castle, Gu Mengmeng squinted her eyes and looked up to welcome the sunlight shining on her face. And at the same time, a group of mafia members in black suits and black sunglasses standing at the entrance of the castle lowered their heads and shouted in unison, "Queen." This shout gave Gu Mengmeng a shock. The last time there was such a scene was during the first winter sacrifice in Saint Nazaire, when Leah publicly announced that she was the messenger of the beast deity. Although there were not as many people in Saint Nazaire then, but after all, the voices of orcs could not be compared to normal humans, so the effect was not much different from the current one. It had been many years since she was so respected in unison, and Gu Mengmeng felt a little uncomfortable. Turning back to look at Elvis, he only looked back at her with doting and indulgent eyes, saying, "You will always be on my shoulders, a level higher than me. Be it in the beast world or here." So, even though he was the king of fiery flames, he requested all the members to greet Gu Mengmeng before him. He would not allow anyone to be more distinguished than Gu Mengmeng, not even to be on par with her. Even he himself couldn't do it. She must be the most supreme existence in the world. Gu Mengmeng tiptoed and kissed him on the cheek. "Thank you for satisfying my vanity. I like it very much." Gu Mengmeng would no longer use the moral standards of the world to demand herself, because she knew that compared to her understanding, her partners preferred her unbridled manner. Vanity, arrogance, unreasonable, these flaws that ordinary men could not tolerate were incomparably precious treasures in the eyes of her man. They took pride in satisfying her vanity, pride, and vexatiousness, and were deeply happy about it. For example, now that Gu Mengmeng's vanity was satisfied, Elvis felt that everything he did was meaningful and he felt blissful. Out of topic, that's it for today. I just want to say. Chapter 1685. A month passed by in the blink of an eye. Leah had full authority to handle the internal affairs of the fiery flames. After displaying his abilities a few times, the fiery flames were all in awe of this second leader and no one doubted him anymore. Furthermore, because of Snake's external assistance and cooperation, the fiery flames' overall power had increased by leaps and bounds. The entire gang's morale was at its peak, giving off a feeling that they could walk with the wind. So not only did no one want to take revenge for Harold, they instead felt that Elvis and Lee's appearance was a godsend for the fiery flames, while Harold was a sinner who had hindered the fiery flames' development. Snake had been quite busy recently in order to establish a relationship between the royal family and the fiery flames. But luckily, he could see Gu Mengmeng's happy and carefree smile every night when he returned to the castle to have dinner with Gu Mengmeng. So he felt that his hard work was worth it. After living in the beast world for so many years, Gu Mengmeng had some attachment to her territory. So even though Snake's original residence was good and no one dared to disturb Gu Mengmeng and Snake, she still felt that it was not comfortable to live under someone else's roof. But the castle that Elvis had snatched over was different. This was truly her family's territory, so Gu Mengmeng felt more at ease staying here. Quentin's injuries are almost healed. Cole had arranged for him to accompany Nina and their child to M Country for treatment yesterday. They have the most advanced technology there and the kidney source is already prepared. Leah whispered into Gu Mengmeng's ear. Gu Mengmeng nodded before walking into the boxing dojo. She was not afraid to see Nina or Quentin. It was just that the karma between them in the beast world was complicated and could not be cut off. It was not a big deal if they did not remember her, but Gu Mengmeng would feel troubled. After all, the men in her family could not tolerate others bullying her. Don't say that you had your own reasons for being schemed against by Leah. If you can't win against Leah, then you are stupid. If you have the ability, then scheme back. So seeing Quentin one more time, the danger level for Quentin and his wife would increase. Who knew who would be the first to lose control and kill him? Therefore, after she had given him all the compensation she could, it would be best for both of them to not see each other again. Turning to look at Elvis, Gu Mengmeng said, "You are now the leader of the fiery flames and your identity is already sensitive, so don't fight again after this round, understand?" Elvis smiled and nodded. "I always listen to Xiao Meng." After getting a satisfactory answer, Gu Mengmeng did not nag anymore. The VIP hall on the second floor was already prepared. Cole stood at the entrance of the VIP hall and welcomed them in a gentlemanly manner. He said with a smile, "I haven't seen you for a month and you've turned from a boxer I discovered to my partner. It seems like my foresight is really good. You're not just a fish in a pond after all." Elvis ignored Cole. After he took over Fiery Flames, he already knew that Cole and Fiery Flames had a lot of business dealings. For Fiery Flames to be able to achieve what it was today in F Country, Cole must have been the mastermind behind the scenes. He cooperated with Raging Flames under his own name, but he held more authority. Herald of the Fiery Flames was just like the leader of the Stray Beasts in the past, Peter. He seemed to have great power and was extremely awe-inspiring, but in the end, he was just a puppet in Cole's hands. Aside from the topic, it had been a long time since she heard this sentence from Elvis: "I always listened to Xiao Meng." Chapter 1686. Elvis could not be bothered to respond to Cole and just gave Leah a look. Leah walked forward with a smile and said, "Today, we are here to fulfill our promise. Let's not talk about other things for now." "All right." Cole smiled faintly at Lee's long and narrow eyes. He also did not know why. Gu Mengmeng clearly had 4 men by her side. Her fiancé in name was Snake, while Elvis was obviously the closest to Gu Mengmeng, but he just had to have the most acute hostility towards this Leah. As long as he met Leah, he would subconsciously raise his guard, as if the person in front of him was not to be underestimated. Gu Mengmeng did not usually care about the internal affairs of the tribe and would not interfere with the internal affairs of the gang. It was just that the frequency of meeting acquaintances was higher recently. To prevent the previous incident from happening again, Gu Mengmeng had no choice but to ask in advance, "Who is my opponent today? Can you show me his information in advance?" Cole was not surprised by Gu Mengmeng's request at all. Ever since she stopped Elvis from strangling Quentin previously, he already knew that she would definitely pay attention to her opponent in this competition. So he handed Gu Mengmeng the opponent's information form that he had prepared in advance. He did not say anything and just stared at her with a smile. Gu Mengmeng completely ignored the expression in Cole's eyes. She only took a glance at the form and held her forehead while sighing, "So the world is really small." Elvis glanced at the form and shook his head helplessly. He smiled bitterly and said, "After all, he went to the platform of the deity's punishment on your behalf. I will be merciful to him." Gu Mengmeng had left behind many messy debts in the beast world and Barit was one of them. From the first day she came to the beast world, she got to know Barit and implicated him countless times. If it could be said that it was an unintentional mistake due to not understanding the rules of the beast world, then later on, she was pretending to be ignorant. Because Barit had never really confessed to her, she did not have the chance to reject him properly. This dragged on until she stepped down from her position as the messenger of the beast deity and became a beast deity. Standing in the clouds, she saw with her own eyes how Barit defended Saint Nazir to the death for a promise. She also saw with her own eyes how he grew old alone for the rest of his life. The debt of love was the hardest to repay. Leah placed an arm on Elvis's shoulder and glanced at the form. He chuckled and said, "Io, another familiar face." To be honest, I was still on guard against him in the beginning. After all, Meng Meng was especially caring towards him, hugging and kissing him. I even thought that he would be the 3rd male in our family after me. Unfortunately, he only has a heart full of infatuation, but does not know how to show it in front of Meng Meng. He is a fool who only knows how to silently contribute. Hugging, kissing. These few words triggered Snake's nerves. He could not help but take a step forward to glance at the form and understood. Gu Mengmeng smiled bitterly and helplessly. "How many times have I said it?" That's because he couldn't swallow at the time, and I had to feed him water with my mouth to save him. And at that time, I didn't know that the barrier between men and women in the beast world was even worse than the Qing dynasty. Let's not talk about this anymore. Chapter 1687. When Leah said that, Gu Mengmeng also turned to look at Cole, as if waiting for his reply. Cole maintained his gentlemanly smile and said, "He should be here for the Wolf King." Gu Mengmeng then turned to look at Elvis. Elvis thought for a moment and said, "Probably out of habit." After all, Barit had been following Elvis since the establishment of Saint Nazaire. Putting aside Gu Mengmeng's matter, Barit still had a high degree of acknowledgement towards Elvis as a leader. Gu Mengmeng nodded and said, "All right, then act according to the situation later and show mercy." "All right." Elvis kissed Gu Mengmeng's forehead before turning to head down to the resting room to prepare. After the previous incident where Elvis tortured Quentin, the audience was even crazier than before. The moment Elvis appeared, the deafening cheers sounded as if they wanted to tear the roof off. Gu Mengmeng stood by the window and looked down at the arena with mixed feelings. Because when Barit appeared, even Gu Mengmeng, who was on the second floor, could deeply feel the gazes and cheers from the audience. It was not support and encouragement, but a kind of excitement, as if they were anticipating him to become a bloody corpse in Elvis's hands in a while. Everyone was looking at him with the cruelest and most expectant gaze, as if the more miserable he was, the more excited they would be. This feeling was very uncomfortable. But Barit did not seem to feel the audience's excitement at all as he suddenly looked up at the one-way glass on the second floor. He clearly could not see anything, but he felt his heart contract, as if there was something he desperately desired behind that glass. Gu Mengmeng instinctively took a step back. Even though she clearly knew that Barit could not really see her, the desire and persistence in his eyes still made Gu Mengmeng's heart tighten. In the beast world, she had already delayed his entire life. To Barit, not seeing each other for the rest of his life would be the real mercy. Snake stood behind Gu Mengmeng, using his chest to catch her steadily. If there was anyone who could best understand Gu Mengmeng's feelings, it would probably be him, who had shared her memories. Some people and some things can't be avoided. Snakel said softly as he held Gu Mengmeng's little hand with his large hand and kissed it. His stubbornness led him to you. If you don't meet him, his life will be in vain. Compared to me, he's not greedy. He just wants to look at you a few more times. Gu Mengmeng turned back to look at Snake, her eyes filled with suspicion. Snake had always been the most narrow-minded. The selfishness and possessiveness of a snake were fully displayed in him. Elvis and Leah had become Gu Mengmeng's partners before him, so he could not do anything about it. Gregory had protected him for 1,000 years, so he owed him a debt of gratitude and allowed him to join Gu Mengmeng's family. Other than that, he did not allow anyone to get close to Gu Mengmeng, regardless of gender. Why did he suddenly change today? Before Gu Mengmeng could finish her question, Snake smirked and continued, "As long as he has the ability to break through the 4 of our defenses, we'll let him see what he wants." Gu Mengmeng chuckled and shook her head. She thought to herself, Snake is indeed Snake. There is no such thing as a sudden change in style. Chapter 1688. However, something unexpected happened once again. Elvis stood at the same spot and did not even move an inch. With just a sudden glare, Barit fell to the ground with a thud and could not get up. The audience looked at each other but no one could say a word. They had spent so much money just to watch a boxing match where no one even moved a finger. What happened to the promised bloody violence? Wasn't breaking one's arm the lowest standard? Cries of refunds rose one after another in the arena and the audience's dissatisfaction rose to the top. Gu Mengmeng was also extremely astonished by this. She did not understand what was going on. On the other hand, Leah laughed softly and told Cole, "Can I trouble you to switch off the lights and surveillance cameras in the arena for 5 seconds?" Cole did not ask for the reason and just instructed through the walkie-talkie. In the next moment, Leah pushed open the windows on the second floor and the arena fell into absolute darkness at the same time. A gust of wind blew in from the windows and following the sound of Leah closing the windows, the lights were switched on again. Elvis, who was originally standing downstairs, was already standing in front of Gu Mengmeng. As for the spectators who were clamoring for a refund, at that moment, the area below the boxing arena was like a huge drunken scene, with everyone sprawled on the ground. And what attracted Gu Mengmeng's attention was the leopard in Elvis's hands. Gu Mengmeng could not believe her own eyes. She had just felt the Beast King's coercion released by Elvis. As she had once been a beast deity, she was immune to such coercion and did not faint like the people downstairs. But why did Barit reveal his true form? This was the modern world and not the beast world. Barit, he is the real Barit. Elvis casually threw Barit to Gregory, who had also revealed his true form due to the Beast King's coercion. He said, "We'll talk about the details when we get back." Gu Mengmeng understood that Elvis was avoiding Cole. Gu Mengmeng also turned back to look at Cole. She just frowned and did not say a word. Elvis carried Gu Mengmeng, Leah carried Barit and Snake carried Gregory. The group left the arena through the employees' passageway and returned to the villa. Barit woke up in the evening. Without anyone guiding him, he easily found Gu Mengmeng in the back garden based on her scent. Gu Mengmeng turned around and met Barit's eyes. There was no need for any other proof, the way he looked at her was the best evidence. He was the real Barit, from the beast world. "Why are you here?" Gu Mengmeng asked the question in her heart. Barit pursed his lips. Even though he knew he did not have the right to look at Gu Mengmeng like that, he could not shift his gaze away. He just replied in a hoarse voice, "Because I returned to the embrace of the beast deity after I died. I begged him to let me return to your side and continue protecting you." Vaguely. "I think I saw Oriton. Then when I opened my eyes, I was already here." Gu Mengmeng facepalmed. She understood. Back then, in order to choose a suitable next messenger of the beast deity, she wrote a novel about the beast world and published it on the internet. And the reader who was finally chosen to be the next messenger of the beast deity saw all of Barit's silent contributions and was extremely touched. In addition to Oriton and Barit's revolutionary friendship. Chapter 1689. Then what plans do you have from now on? Gu Mengmeng sighed and asked softly. Barit smiled and said, "Join the fiery flames and follow Elvis to protect you." "I don't want much, just the same as before." Gu Mengmeng remained silent for a long while before finally nodding her head. It was not that she did not want to persuade Barit to let go, but how many times did she persuade him in the beast world? Did he even hear a single sentence? Back then, he did not listen to her advice and chased after her after experiencing life and death. How could he give up now? Barit was also very clear about his position. No matter how much he yearned for it, he would not take another step towards Gu Mengmeng. Because he knew that as long as he took that small step, the four males around her and even Gu Mengmeng herself would push him further away. The closest he could get to her was here. Barit turned around to report to Leah while Gu Mengmeng huddled in Elvis's arms and sighed faintly, saying, "Do you think that my successor as the messenger of the beast deity will throw everyone in the beast world over to me?" "It's hard to say." Elvis said, "That little female is even more mischievous than you." Gu Mengmeng facepalmed. Perhaps this was called following the example of one's superiors. In the past, she used Wang Xiaoxin's name to swindle people everywhere, while her successor used her to run amok everywhere. Like author, like reader. Shaking her head, she said, "Forget it, let's not think about these first. If we really meet, we'll talk about it." Elvis kissed the top of Gu Mengmeng's head deeply, then said with a faint gaze, "Xiao Meng, I have something to tell you." Gu Mengmeng replied with a single room and looked up at Elvis. Elvis pursed his lips and said, "I have a present for you." Gu Mengmeng's lips curved and her eyes curved into a smile. She opened her palms and said, "What is it?" Elvis held her little hand and pressed it down, saying, "I'll give it to you tonight." Gu Mengmeng blushed and lowered her head on Elvis's chest, saying, "Annoying." Elvis was a little confused from being hung down, until he saw the flirtatious look in her eyes and brows. He then understood that she had misunderstood his intentions. He could not help but rub her little head and said, "If you want it, I will satisfy you later. But that's not the present I'm giving you today." Who wants it?" Gu Mengmeng immediately retorted, but it was a pity that she did not have any imposing manner. Elvis wrapped his arms around Gu Mengmeng's waist and pressed his chin against her ear. I want it. Gu Mengmeng shut her mouth. She felt that Elvis's "it's all right, I'll take the blame for you" tone made her even more obvious. What gift is it? So mysterious, Gu Mengmeng mumbled. But Elvis only smiled and did not reply. That night, one luxury car after another drove into the castle in an orderly manner. One by one could tell that they were extremely important big shots appeared in the parlor of the castle. Clusters of white roses decorated the place like a fairy tale world. The bright pearls shone as if it was daytime. Those who were usually filled with murderous intent were also exchanging toasts with each other. While exchanging toasts, there was a hint of joy on their faces, making the atmosphere rather harmonious. And when Gu Mengmeng appeared wearing an elegant evening gown under Elvis's lead, she naturally attracted everyone's attention. Chapter 1690. If it was said that Gu Mengmeng was still clueless in the afternoon, then when the most famous stylist in F country appeared in front of her and dressed her up without any hesitation, while the 4 men in her family were all dressed in suits and smiling at her, how could she not guess? Snake, Leah and Gregory were all dressed in black suits, while only Elvis was dressed in a white custom-made suit. Together with his extreme dark aura, it formed the strongest contrast, attracting everyone's attention. So, Elvis was the male lead today, while the other 3 were willing to hide their brilliance to serve as his foil. Actually, why did they have to do that? They were an old married couple, and they already had 4 children. What was the point of talking about such empty formalities? But when Gu Mengmeng's hand was held by Elvis, like a princess being carefully protected in his palms, he held her hand and walked the red carpet, leading her step by step to the most dazzling place, to tell the whole world that this woman was his, Elvis's, most precious treasure. That kind of touching and happiness would really make one feel a surge of warmth from the bottom of one's heart, spreading throughout one's entire body, nourishing the love that had settled down for countless days but had its edges smoothed out, allowing the spring breeze to grow new branches, telling her, "Look, your love has not been worn down by the trivial life, it will still blossom into a flower that will surprise you." The exquisite 3-tiered cake in the towering champagne tower, the live violin player and the fragrant white roses that represented pure love. All of this seemed like a scene from a fairy tale. Oh, right, there was also the prince that was indispensable in fairy tales, holding her hand at this moment. Elvis brought Gu Mengmeng to the front of a display stand, then picked up 2 champagne glasses and clinked them lightly. The crisp sound made everyone at the scene quiet down in unison, and they all looked at Elvis attentively. Elvis placed the glasses down, then pulled open the curtain of the display stand. There were 3 combs placed there, all of which Gu Mengmeng recognized. She shifted her gaze away from the combs, back to Elvis's face, as if waiting for him to speak. Elvis took a deep breath. It was obvious that he was still nervous. He pinched Gu Mengmeng's little hand, then slowly opened his mouth. "Xiao Meng, I don't know where the end of eternity is, but I know I can't live without you. You are the reason I overcome everything, and the reason I must live. You are my most precious one, a treasure that I will never allow to be harmed." There was an ancient legend in Z country. It said that if one of the husband and wife died first, then as long as the wife's wooden comb was split into 2 and carried each of them, they would be able to meet again in the next life. That's why I've prepared 4 combs for you. This way, you'll never lose us. You won't have to be afraid of the yellow springs either. We'll always find you and return to your side. Gu Mengmeng was actually very touched. After all, Elvis was not someone who was good with words. Gu Mengmeng was already surprised that he could say such romantic words. But, these are clearly 3 combs. Chapter 1691. What? Gu Mengmeng's expression changed. Elvis held Gu Mengmeng's hand and said, "Don't be angry, let me finish." Gu Mengmeng bit her lower lip and the happiness on her face disappeared. Elvis smiled bitterly. He knew that Xiao Meng would be angry if he hurt her, but, I'm afraid that the so-called forever will suddenly come to an end. I'm afraid that I will lose you when I'm unprepared. I'm afraid that I won't be able to find you. So I took out the second rib from my left chest and personally ground it into a bone comb. It's the bone closest to my heart. It knows best that every beat of my heart is because of you. So, if the end of forever suddenly comes, and I don't even have time to break the wooden comb and hold half of it with you, then this bone will at least guide me to find you in this desolate world. Xiao Meng, my heart will not stop beating without this bone protecting it. But if I can't find you, there's no meaning for my heart to beat anymore. So don't be angry at me. Be good and keep it by your side. Let me know that I won't lose you. All right? Gu Mengmeng pursed her lips. She really didn't like it when they used this method of hurting themselves to prove their love for her. Leah always understood Gu Mengmeng the best. He took a step forward and said, "Don't forget the regenerative ability of a beast king. Even coal can grow a new hand and tail. A bone is nothing to Elvis." Gu Mengmeng glared daggers at him. Leah immediately surrendered and said, "Don't worry, I promise. The men in our family won't be so uncreative and follow Elvis's method. Just this once, no one will take anything from their body and give it to you, okay?" Gu Mengmeng finally calmed down. She placed her hand on Elvis's left chest and asked, "Does it still hurt?" Elvis shook his head and said, "As long as you're around, I don't feel any pain." In the end, Gu Mengmeng still took over the bone comb from Elvis's hands. She could only feel the warmth from the comb burning her palms in pain. She whispered into Elvis's ear, "You have to promise me that you won't do such things again." "All right." Elvis kissed Gu Mengmeng's earlobe gently and promised, "I'll always listen to Xiao Meng." Gu Mengmeng then nodded her head in satisfaction, letting him off this time. After all, there were so many people watching. This was the first time Elvis, the underground upstart, had appeared in public, so she had to save some face for him. Furthermore, Elvis had spent so much effort to organize a banquet for her, she did not want to let him return in disappointment. Seeing that Gu Mengmeng's expression had softened a little, Elvis looked at Leah with gratitude. He then took half a step back and knelt down on one knee. He held Gu Mengmeng's hand and kissed it, saying, "Xiao Meng, everything in this world is too foreign to me. I'm still not outstanding enough and I'm not compatible with you, but I'm willing to use everything I have to support a world for you, so that you can live a carefree life where I am. For you, I will stand at the peak of the world and make you the most honorable person in the world." Snake was right about one thing. How can my woman be wronged? The proposal that has been delayed for 1,000 years is the ceremony I owe you. Chapter 1692. Gu Mengmeng stretched out her left hand and lifted her ring finger. Elvis smiled as he took out the ring from the box and wore it on her slender finger. Then, the corners of his lips curled up uncontrollably. Gu Mengmeng pulled Elvis up from the ground. Elvis pulled Gu Mengmeng into his arms and kissed her forehead. He whispered in her ear, "Xiao Meng, I'm sorry for making you wait for so long." Gu Mengmeng shook her head and chuckled, "No matter if there is a proposal or not, you will always be my first partner and my husband." Elvis kissed Gu Mengmeng's lips for a long time. Claps and cheers came from the surroundings. Gu Mengmeng then remembered that there were not only her family members here, there were also some influential guests. Pushing Elvis away lightly, Gu Mengmeng lowered her head shyly and leaned against his chest obediently. The sound of the cork flying out of the bottle pushed the atmosphere to a small climax. Elvis hugged Gu Mengmeng with one hand and held the champagne bottle with the other. He started pouring the champagne from the top of the champagne tower. After he finished pouring the champagne, he gave Leah a look and Leah started greeting the guests with a face full of smiles. To Leah, these social interactions were self-taught. There was no other reason other than it was too easy to guess what these people were thinking. Almost all their thoughts were written on their faces. So, as long as Leah was willing, he could converse happily with everyone. Elvis hugged Gu Mengmeng and walked towards the garden at the back, saying that he had another surprise for Gu Mengmeng. Gu Mengmeng looked at Elvis in confusion and asked, "Where else did you remove?" Elvis smiled bitterly and said, removing one rib has already made you unhappy, how would I dare to remove anything else? Even if he really removed it, he did not dare to say it now. Gu Mengmeng was still skeptical and asked, really? Elvis nodded his head seriously and said, I promised you that I won't lie to you. Only then did Gu Mengmeng relax. She started to look forward to the surprise that Elvis had mentioned. Before they reached the garden, Gu Mengmeng heard the melodious sound of a piano. Raising her brows in confusion, Gu Mengmeng looked at Elvis with a face full of suspicion. If giving her a piano performance could be considered a surprise, then the one playing the piano should at least be Elvis himself. But he was currently hugging her, so it was impossible for him to play the piano. Facing Gu Mengmeng's doubtful gaze, Elvis smiled and said, believe me, you will definitely like it. When Gu Mengmeng and Elvis walked to the back garden accompanied by the melodious piano music, there was only a pure white European-style piano. A young man sat in front of the piano, looking clean and pure. His slender fingers wandered over the black and white keys of the piano. He was playing and enjoying himself at the same time. The melody flowed smoothly from his fingertips and seemed to revolve around him, turning into a galaxy. The young man sat in the center of the Milky Way, surrounded by stars, dazzling and captivating. However, the moment he opened his eyes, you would suddenly realize that his eyes were the brightest stars in the world. His pupils were as clear as the night sky, containing the entire galaxy of the universe. His faint smile had the power to touch people's hearts. That pure young man had the cleanest look. Just one eye contact made Gu Mengmeng's heart clench and she could not help but hold her heart with both her hands. It's so good to see you again. Digression. This round of digression had ended. Then everyone guess, who is this young man? Hint, he was someone unrelated to love but Gu Mengmeng still held him in high regard. He was also a character that once made the baby's hearts ache. P.S. Chapter 1693. Fei Rui. Gu Mengmeng could not help but call out in a low voice. She still remembered how Fei Rui had swallowed the poisonous shellfish king and was bleeding from all his orifices. His skin was festering bit by bit as he fell backwards into the depths of the ocean. Inch by inch, he was devoured by the black poisonous fog right before her eyes, until nothing was left of him. Snake and Gregory had also paid a similar huge price for her, but no matter what, Snake and Gregory were her men. According to the rules of the beast world, it was reasonable for them to do anything for her. But Fei Rui was not. He was just an obedient and pure child, so kind that no one could bear to lie to him. That pair of clear eyes was like the brightest star in the galaxy. The moment he opened his eyes, he brought you to experience the brilliance of the entire galaxy. And such a child had died so tragically. She did not even have a chance to make it up to him. That was the thorn in Gu Mengmeng's heart that she could not pull out for a long time. Even after 1,000 years, the moment she saw Fei Rui, her heart shrank and her eyes turned red without any precaution. Fei Rui's slender fingers played the last note on the piano. He then stood up elegantly and bowed to Gu Mengmeng like a gentleman. Gu Mengmeng could not control herself. She could not suppress the excitement in her heart and her entire body stiffened strangely. When she walked step by step to Fei Rui, she was already sobbing uncontrollably. There were no words that could express her joy and gratitude at this moment. She could only hug Fei Rui tightly and refuse to let go no matter what. Fei Rui seemed to be shocked by Gu Mengmeng's actions. After all, he was different from Barit. He was indeed Fei Rui, but not a little mermaid with deep-sea memories. But Gu Mengmeng was also different from other lascivious men. Her hug did not have any hint of disrespect or teasing. Instead, it was more like an old mother looking forward to the return of her son who had gone to join the army after the war. This made Fei Rui at a loss. He wanted to push Gu Mengmeng away but felt that she was crying too pitifully. He could not bear to see her cry so heartbroken and heart-wrenching. But if he did not push her away, not far away, the new leader of Furious Flames stood with a face so cold that the temperature of the entire castle was about to drop below zero. Fei Rui even had the misconception that if Gu Mengmeng did not let go, that person would pounce on him and bite him. Yes, he didn't pull out his gun and turn him into a sieve. Instead, he pounced on him and tore him apart bit by bit. Hiss. Fei Rui sucked in a breath of cold air and his body instinctively shrank back, attracting Gu Mengmeng's attention. What happened to you? Are you feeling unwell? Gu Mengmeng's face was covered in tear stains. Honestly speaking, her current appearance could not be considered beautiful at all. She was covered in snot and tears and looked as pathetic as she could be. But it was this face that revealed sincerity and concern that warmed Fei Rui's heart. He pushed Gu Mengmeng away slightly and pulled up his sleeves. Gu Mengmeng stared at the broken skin on his arm in shock. It was obvious that blood was seeping out, which meant that the wound was freshly made. He was fine when he was playing the piano just now. How did this happen? Could it be, did I hug you too tightly and hurt you? Gu Mengmeng asked with self-blame and worry. Aside from the topic, originally, I had planned to publish Lee's side story after I finished writing it. But the editor said that the figures for Elvis's side story were not bad during this period of time. He asked me not to stop and continue publishing Lee's side story. This was a little rushed because I had not finished writing this side story yet. I was a little worried that I would not be able to finish a story. So Su would slow down the speed of updating. Lee's side story would be updated at 2 chapters a day. I hope my babies can understand. P.S. Chapter 1694. Fei Rui nodded, but shook his head before Gu Mengmeng could apologize. He patted Gu Mengmeng's shoulder lightly and smiled. There were no words, but Gu Mengmeng seemed to understand that he was saying, "It's all right, don't worry." This pitiful child, always looking like he couldn't bear to blame anyone. When Leah blocked the well with a huge rock and almost killed him with his beasts, he never complained about Leah in front of Gu Mengmeng. He was even willing to apologize to Leah first, to prevent Gu Mengmeng from arguing with Leah because of him. He never knew that his understanding and consideration were what made people's hearts ache more. Gu Mengmeng wiped her tears as she shouted, "Leah, Leah." The Beast King's hearing was extremely good, and her partner was especially sensitive to her voice. So in just 2 breaths, Leah, who was standing in the hall socializing with the crowd, had already wrapped his arms around Gu Mengmeng's waist flirtatiously. He rested his chin on Gu Mengmeng's shoulder and wiped away the tears on Gu Mengmeng's face with his slender fingers. He pursed his lips and whispered into her ear, "We've only been apart for 10 minutes and you're already crying because you missed me?" Gu Mengmeng was not in the mood to flirt with him. She sniffled and suppressed her sobs, saying, "Help me look after Fei Rui, this child." Leah held Gu Mengmeng's shoulders with both hands and turned her around to face him. He bent down slightly to accommodate her height and looked into her eyes, saying, "How can I be in the mood to treat others when you're crying like this? It's not like you don't know that under any circumstances, I will always take care of you first." Gu Mengmeng immediately wiped away the tears on her face rudely, then looked at Leah with pleading eyes, saying, "I'm fine, I'm really fine. Help me look after Fei Rui." Leah kissed Gu Mengmeng's eyes lightly, then said, all right. When have I ever rejected your requests? Don't cry, I will cure him, mmm. Gu Mengmeng nodded, then allowed Leah to pass her into Elvis's arms. Elvis took Gu Mengmeng's arms and gently squeezed her little hand to comfort her. Leah rolled his eyes at Elvis and said, "When Snake proposed, he used friends and balloons to make Mengmeng so happy. Look at you, first you used a bone comb to make her angry, and now you used a Fei Rui to make her cry. Sigh, if I were to switch sides with Snake one day, your position as the first partner would be in jeopardy." Elvis shook his head helplessly with a bitter smile. What could he do? He was also in despair. He had guessed that Xiao Meng might be angry about the bone comb, but in order to be with him forever, he was willing to take the risk of making her angry. As for Fei Rui, it was because he knew that Xiao Meng would be angry about the bone comb, so he left this surprise here to make up for his mistake. How could he have known that he would be so surprised that Xiao Meng would cry? Alas, what a great sorrow. Leah didn't waste too much time on Elvis. After all, Fei Rui was also a suspected love rival of Gu Mengmeng's when she was in the beast world. When I'm in a good mood, I'll take him in as my male. How could he let Gu Mengmeng focus her emotions on him for a long time? Although the two of them didn't develop anything in the beast world, Fei Rui's death was so dramatic. Who knew if Gu Mengmeng would develop some other emotions out of heartache? Aside from the topic. Chapter 1695. Don't forget, out of the 4 males in their family, other than Elvis, his first partner, he won by force. The other 3 all relied on acting pitifully to get their position. That year, he used all his tricks and almost jumped into the fire pit on the platform of the deity's punishment, turning himself into a grilled vixen, before exchanging his position for a beast pet. Snake cut his chest to take out his gallbladder, Gregory broke his wings and was blinded. Which one of them did not rely on acting pitifully to make Gu Mengmeng feel sorry for him? Fei Rui's death was not any more comfortable than Snake and Gregory's. Only someone as insensitive as Elvis would send such a dangerous suspected love rival to Gu Mengmeng. TSK, he was courting death and even implicated his neighbors. Leah despised Fei Rui 1,000 times and even started to suspect what he was thinking back then. Why did he think that this idiot was suitable to be his first partner? Flipping up Fei Rui's sleeves, Leah carefully checked the wound and frowned. He looked up at Fei Rui, then turned to look at Gu Mengmeng, saying, "It seems to be a rare skin disease. I need to take a sample and bring it to the laboratory for testing. It's best if I can take a blood test, that would be safer." Gu Mengmeng's brows were still furrowed and her sobbing tone had not subsided. She only asked while sniffling, "Can it be cured?" Leah smiled and rubbed Gu Mengmeng's little head, saying, "As long as you don't want him to die, I will definitely be able to cure him." Gu Mengmeng nodded heavily and grabbed Lee's wrist with both hands, saying, "I cannot let Fei Rui die in front of me again, definitely not." Leah did not reply and just narrowed his eyes. He first glanced at Elvis, then at Gu Mengmeng, asking, "What happens after he is cured? Are you planning to let him become our 5th brother?" "Meng, allow me to remind you. Putting aside Elvis and I, Snake's character is not one who can tolerate others. If not for the fact that he owes Gregory a huge favor and their friendship of 1,000 years, he would have eaten Gregory whole in one bite. If you want to accept Lao Wu, you must first think of a way to get past him. After all, he is also a famous and proper partner. And Gregory, even though he knew that he had been tricked by me, he still broke his wings for you without any hesitation and guarded Moda Mountain for 1,000 years. Till now, he still doesn't have the chance to take over, but you want to take in a new person? And Barit, although he did not do anything earth-shattering for you, he still went to the platform of the deity's punishment for you. Moreover, he was the one who confessed his love for you the moment you arrived in the beast world and was unwavering in his loyalty. When he was alive, he spent his entire life alone in the beast world. For you, he ignored the advances of all the outstanding females. Not every male could do this. Even after they died, they would beg to return to your side, just to see you one more time. But you never gave him any hope. You first took in Snake, then Gregory, and now you want to use Fei Rui to stab him in the heart? Gu Mengmeng was stunned by Li's scolding and only reacted after a long while. She hurriedly shook her head and said, "I didn't. I don't have that kind of feeling towards Fei Rui. In my eyes, Fei Rui is the same as the Ku brothers. I am not a pervert, I am not a pedophile." Chapter 1696. Gu Mengmeng's sorrowful feelings from seeing Gregory were all messed up by Li's warning. Now that she had a phone, maybe she should really send out a message for help. Hubby tend to get jealous and think that I'm having an affair with every male? It's quite urgent, I'm waiting online. After thinking for a while, she gave up. Just the word hubby would probably cause the netizens' imagination to run wild and come up with all sorts of ideas. But luckily, she did not have any strange thoughts towards Fei Rui, and Fei Rui obviously did not have those thoughts towards her either. So this matter did not cause much of a stir and was soon forgotten. After Leah did a comprehensive checkup on Fei Rui, he concluded that Fei Rui had a rare skin disease. Currently, there were very few people in the world who had this disease, so there was no specific name for it. His skin was thinner and weaker than normal people, and would break with just a slight touch. So the clothes he usually wore had to be especially soft, and he had to avoid physical contact with others. Apart from that, Fei Rui's vocal cords were damaged and he could not speak. So even though he had a good sense of music, he could only play the piano and not sing. He could not make friends like normal people, fall in love, and could not even attend a special school like other deaf and mute people to integrate into a group with the same attributes as him. He could only live alone. The piano became his only friend. His talent and hard work allowed him to have outstanding skills in the piano field. Unfortunately, he could not display his talent in front of others like other pianists, and could only play silently for himself in the piano room. If Elvis had not accidentally discovered him and brought Gu Mengmeng along to become his first audience, he would probably spend the rest of his life alone in that piano room, with the black and white keys as his companions for the rest of his life. Gu Mengmeng sighed. Even though Leah did not say it, what could Gu Mengmeng not understand? His vocal cords were damaged because there was a poisonous shellfish king stuck in his throat. His skin was weak because his skin had been corroded by the poisonous fog. I don't like it when you sigh for other males, so I will cure him. You don't have to worry about it. Leah held Gu Mengmeng's little face and kissed it, saying, but, the treatment process for this disease is very strict on the environment, so he cannot stay in the ancient castle. We have to arrange for him to receive treatment in a sterile ward. Gu Mengmeng nodded to show that she had no objections. She did not even dare to raise the question of whether she could visit him. No choice, Leah was even more jealous than Elvis. If she didn't avoid it and allowed Leah to believe that she had some unspeakable feelings for Fei Rui, she had no doubt that Fei Rui would most likely die in a medical accident during a dermatological treatment. Leah was quite satisfied with Gu Mengmeng's attitude. Hence, Fei Rui was taken away by Li's men on the same day. He did not know where he was going or when he would be back, and he did not dare to ask. 3 months passed quietly like this. Gu Mengmeng had unknowingly become the most respectable woman in this world. The people of the surface world called her princess. The people of the lower world called her queen. She was getting redder and redder, but she was getting more and more reluctant to go out. Luckily, the ancient castle that Elvis had snatched was big enough for her to kill time by walking around the house twice a day. Until one day, when a woman with disheveled hair, dirty body, and ragged clothes appeared in front of her in a deranged manner, breaking the original peace. Out of topic, come on, guess who this woman is? Chapter 1697. Slut. You slut. That deranged woman raised her hand and pointed shakily at Gu Mengmeng, shouting hysterically, "It's all your fault, it's all your fault. I'll strangle you to death." Gu Mengmeng was taken aback at first, but she quickly retreated. Although Snake no longer had the powers of a beast king, his body still retained its memories of battles. She did not have the strength to slap Wabi-Ai away like before, nor did she have the agility to avoid the orc's attacks, but her reflexes were still sufficient to deal with an ordinary woman covered in wounds. And Gu Mengmeng had just dodged to the side when she felt a tightness around her waist. She was lifted up and protected by a chest. And that deranged woman was sent flying by Leah with a kick. Immediately after, bodyguards rushed up and pinned the woman to the ground, waiting for Li's orders with their heads raised. Li's face darkened as he said coldly in fluent F language, "Bring her back to the dungeon and watch carefully. If something like this happens again, I'll lock all of you up in the dungeon too." The bodyguards had personally witnessed how Leah dealt with the 3 people in the dungeon these few days, so they were fully aware of this man's ruthlessness. They were people who were used to living on the edge of a knife's edge and had seen all sorts of situations. Leah had completely refreshed their understanding of the word terror. His viciousness was far from the level of breaking off an arm or a leg. The saying, "killing someone is just a matter of nodding your head to the ground," was considered a gracious punishment to him. So, when Leah said that, no matter how warm his smile was, the bodyguards all felt a chill down their spines. They did not dare to belittle him and immediately nodded in agreement, before bringing the deranged woman away. After the outsiders left, Gu Mengmeng then asked, "That woman, what happened?" "It's just a triad matter, don't worry about it." Leah answered casually, as if it was just a small matter that was not worth mentioning. Usually, Gu Mengmeng was not willing to get involved in triad matters, because triads were different from tribes. They were not simply independent political entities, and only needed to close their doors and settle their own family matters. The relationship between the gangs was complicated, and the conflict of interests was much deeper than that between one tribe and another. Only Li's nimble mind could handle everything in an orderly manner and avoid many unnecessary conflicts and fights. In addition, the relationship between him and the royal family required him to know when to advance and when to retreat. Sometimes, a wrong word or even a wrong piece of clothing could cause a huge uproar. So Gu Mengmeng did not like to interfere with the affairs of the tribe. She did not want to cause more trouble for her own males. But this time was an exception. This was the first time Gu Mengmeng asked after Leah mentioned the gang's internal affairs. Why would the fiery flames need to settle with a woman? Didn't the underworld also have its own principles and rules? At the very least, it's don't bring disaster to your wife and children. Leah took a deep breath and looked at Gu Mengmeng. He shook his head and sighed. "Mengmeng, I shouldn't have promised to never lie to you or hide anything from you back then." Gu Mengmeng raised her brows and tilted her head to look at Leah. Would Leah need to lie to her or deliberately hide things from her if it was just a matter within the gang? How could it be? So, that woman, out of topic. Chapter 1698. Leah looked into Gu Mengmeng's eyes and finally gave up. "I can tell you, but you have to promise not to be angry or abandon me because of this." Upon hearing that, Gu Mengmeng looked helpless and amused. How many years had it been since Leah mentioned the word abandon? Why did it suddenly pop out today? Why? She is your lover? You are afraid that I will find out, so you imprisoned her? Leah frowned and glared at Gu Mengmeng. He gritted his teeth and said, "You dare to doubt my loyalty?" Gu Mengmeng instantly felt her waist and legs turn to jelly. She immediately surrendered like a coward and said, "I don't dare to, I just want to express that unless you have an affair, I will not abandon you." Humph, that's more like it. Leah was also not sure if Gu Mengmeng would be angry if she heard what he said later. So even though he was in the right now, he did not dare to make things difficult for Gu Mengmeng. So he just brushed it off and did not pursue the matter further. Clearing his throat, Leah tightened his grip on Gu Mengmeng's little hand. He then said in a low voice, "I found a way to treat Fei Rui." Gu Mengmeng nodded in agreement. "That's a good thing, but does it have anything to do with that woman? Aren't you going to ask me how to treat Fei Rui first?" "Oh, then how are you going to treat Fei Rui?" Leah pursed his lips and then looked at Gu Mengmeng from the corner of his eye. He said softly, "Change the skin." Change. Gu Mengmeng's mind exploded. She then frowned and said, "You want to give that woman's skin to Fei Rui?" Leah shook his head. Gu Mengmeng was about to heave a sigh of relief when she heard Leah say calmly and slowly, "She is too old and her skin quality is not good. So I did not use her skin. Instead, I used her daughter's skin." Gu Mengmeng looked at Leah in shock. She was stunned for a moment before asking, "How much did you use?" "All of it." Leah clearly felt Gu Mengmeng's body stiffen the moment he said this. Leah sighed faintly and said, "I knew you would be angry. You hate it the most when I touch other females, you will definitely think that it's dirty. Although I wore gloves the whole time, you still can't accept it, right? It's alright, once I'm done with my revenge, I'll let Elvis, the first partner, carry out the execution and chop off these dirty hands of mine." Gu Mengmeng caught the keyword in Li's words, revenge. How long had Leah been in the modern world? Moreover, he spent most of his time with Gu Mengmeng, who would have the chance to form a grudge with him. Moreover, Li's EQ was actually very high. Unless it was related to Gu Mengmeng, it was very difficult for others to anger him, much less escalate it to the level of hatred. A situation that could make Leah scheme so much that he would rather sacrifice both his hands for revenge. I know her? Gu Mengmeng narrowed her eyes and asked directly. Leah nodded his head and replied unwillingly, if the past that Snake heard about after he came to this world is all true, then you should know her. Her past after Snake came to this world? Gu Mengmeng thought about Li's words that sounded like a tongue twister. She thought about it a few times before she understood. That was something that happened before she met Snake. She met Snake when she was in her first year of university, so this woman was someone she knew before she entered university? Digression. Chapter 1699. Things that happened before university. Gu Mengmeng tried hard to recall. Who was it? The same person who bullied her when she was working? The classmate who wrongly accused her of stealing class funds in high school? That could not be. Even someone as calculative as Snakel did not take revenge on those trivial matters. Why would Leah go to such lengths to skin someone's daughter to take revenge? If that was the case, she must have offended her quite severely, right? But why could she not recall it herself? Leah stretched out his long and slender thumb to gently stroke Gu Mengmeng's tightly furrowed brows. Be good, don't frown. My heart aches. Gu Mengmeng looked up at Leah in a daze. Then don't make me waste my brain thinking about it. Just tell me, who is that woman? Leah pursed his lips and said a name, Wang Suyun, the mistress who stole your beast father. Gu Mengmeng was instantly stunned. Wang Suyun. Wang Suyun. How could she have forgotten this name? That woman who destroyed her family and made her an orphan. That woman who destroyed her original life with one kick. How could she have forgotten about her? That's right. Only such a huge grudge would make Leah want to take action personally. But, how did you know? Gu Mengmeng asked with a frown. Leah looked at Gu Mengmeng's expression. Just hearing that name made all the muscles in his body tense up. That pair of eyes that had been calm for 1,000 years, as if nothing could provoke her anymore, was instantly tainted with thin red streaks. Taking a deep breath, Leah said, when Elvis accompanied you to the fantasy realm to meet Wang Xiaoxin, didn't he watch a TV series? It was about your beast father looking for you in university. You were so angry that you hid in the toilet and cried secretly. Then, when Bailan scolded you, she mentioned the grievances you suffered because of that adulterous couple. When Elvis came back and told me, I asked you. Everything you said was true. At that time, I told you that I wanted to come to the modern world and take revenge with my own hands. But you said that the wish that could be exchanged for opening the doors of time and space was to be used to save Qi. So you didn't agree to it. Now that Leah mentioned it, Gu Mengmeng recalled that there was indeed such a scene. It was just that too much time had passed, so much so that Gu Mengmeng herself had forgotten about it. Gu Mengmeng clenched her fists and weighed the pros and cons in her heart. In the end, she hugged Li's neck and leaned on his shoulder. It's all in the past. I've already let it go. I don't hate anymore. So, there's no need for revenge, no need. Mengmeng, do you still not understand? Li's voice was low and had an undeniable insistence. He said, this is my vengeance, my hatred, I can't let it go. I can't forgive anyone who hurt you, especially them. Mengmeng is so precious to me, how dare they, he actually dared. She despised you, abandoned you, and used harsh words to mock you. That bitch even hit you. I can't forgive, I really can't. I must take revenge for this. I will use the cruelest method in this world to make them pay for what they have done to you in the past. I must. Those few key words were like sharp daggers stabbing into Li's heart. Even if he did not witness the process with his own eyes, just the thought of those words happening to Gu Mengmeng made him feel that it was intolerable. Aside from the topic. Chapter 1700. Leah, I know your heart aches for me. But to me, these are all things that happened 1,000 years ago. No matter how deep the hatred and unwillingness to accept it, it has all been smoothed over by time. So I really don't hate them anymore. Leah stared at Gu Mengmeng quietly, and after a while, he smiled and said, even after experiencing 1,000 years of hardship, you are still as soft-hearted as before. The moment you heard her name, you frowned, your eyes reddened, your fists clenched tightly, and your entire body stiffened. Yet you still say that you forgive her? Gu Mengmeng shook her head and said, she destroyed my family and snatched what could have been a peaceful and beautiful life from me. I can't forgive her, I will never be able to. But not forgiving doesn't mean I hate her. I don't want her to become the dark side of my life. I don't want a lowly person like her to cause me to fall into a twisted psychological struggle. I also don't want you or the other males in the family to be tainted by her dirty blood. Can you understand me? Leah shook his head and then kissed Gu Mengmeng's forehead gently and said, I'm sorry, Mengmeng. I clearly promised to listen to everything you say, but this time, I'm going to disobey you. This is the only thing that I really can't let go of. Gu Mengmeng sighed softly. She didn't want to be a saint and say that no matter how she hurt her in the past, we must forgive her, change her and help her before living a loving life together. She was once a beast deity, but not a deity who loved everyone. She didn't have a compassionate heart like Buddha, nor was she as open-minded and wise as Jesus. She believed in the cycle of reincarnation and that good and evil would be rewarded accordingly. Repaying evil with good, how to repay good with good. So, she said she didn't hate Wang Suyun not because of Wang Suyun but because of the males in her family. Hating someone was a very, very tiring thing. Especially Leah, there was already a huge darkness in his life that could not be erased. He was entangled by hatred and was unable to break free even after mating with her. After 1,000 years, he finally forgot about his hatred and could bathe under the sunlight like the pure white snow on the mountain top and no longer have to endure those filthy entanglements. How could she bear to use her past to drag him back into the abyss of hatred? Her heart ached for her own man. How far do you want me to go before you stop? Gu Mengmeng didn't want to blame Leah for anything. After all, he was like that because his heart ached for her. Leah pursed his lips and answered honestly, if these 3 people die, I will stop. After all, Mengmeng has already said one's wife and children should not be implicated. Gu Mengmeng nodded and did not try to persuade him again. Leah was very flexible in most matters and was especially willing to listen to Gu Mengmeng, compromising for her without any principles. But in some specific areas, he was stubborn, even more difficult to persuade than the other 3 males in the family. Since he had decided to kill her scum of a father and his family of 3, he would definitely kill them. Even if Gu Mengmeng begged for mercy, it would be useless. He sighed and said, so out of those 3, only that woman is still alive? Leah looked coldly in the direction of the dungeon and his lips curled into a sinister smile. No, all 3 of them are alive. Chapter 1701. Yes, he was skinned. Leah retracted his gaze and when he looked at Gu Mengmeng, his malevolence dissipated by a lot. Then, he replied proudly, do you still remember Damagua? Gu Mengmeng thought for a while and nodded. The names in the beast world were too European and American. Other than those she was especially familiar with, Gu Mengmeng really could not remember much. Especially those whom she had only met a few times, she could not remember them all. But Damagua was an exception. Although she had only met him once, his name was sufficiently special, so Gu Mengmeng could remember him more deeply. Then do you still remember what you said to him when you were scaring him? Leah seemed to have thought of something interesting. The curve of his lips changed slightly into a sweet smile. Gu Mengmeng thought for a long time and shook her head. She only remembered that it was the first winter before she came to the beast world. Damagua attacked her like a lunatic and even injured many warriors in the Saint Nazir tribe. Elvis and Leah then managed to cure him. Was she trying to scare him? No, right? Leah smiled indulgently and dotingly. His tone was full of gentleness and sweetness as he said, "He damaged your beast's skin and you lied to him that the beast's skin was hunted by your beast deity for your mother beast. Then, your mother beast gifted you the extremely precious beast skin and wanted him to skin himself to compensate you. He even said that I was good at skinning and could peel off his skin in one piece without dying." Gu Mengmeng laughed awkwardly and said, "Really? Did that happen?" Leah nodded seriously, then tapped Gu Mengmeng's little nose in a slightly reproachful manner and said, "You really made things difficult for me at that time. Skinning in the beast world can only use claws. Although they are sharp and used well, they cannot be as precise as modern machines. So at that time, I couldn't peel off his entire skin and not let him die. But now, I seem to be able to do it." Xia Xiangxi face-bombed. She swore that she really did not expect Leah to remember the nonsense she spouted and persevere until he succeeded. Then what about him? No matter what, Gu Mengmeng could no longer call him father. Leah thought for a while. Gu Mengmeng had already seen that bastard and he had confessed to her about her daughter. So, it was obvious who the remaining him was. "I felt that the 10 greatest tortures of the Qing dynasty that you told me previously were quite good, so I tried it on him." Gu Mengmeng's lips twitched. She really regretted it. She should not have told Leah, such a black-hearted person like him, those things. "So, you used a small blade to dismember him?" "No," Leah replied calmly. "I planned to use the death of 1,000 cuts on that slut. As for the male one, I'm currently executing the first of the 5 punishments of the Zhou dynasty, by..." Gu Mengmeng was momentarily stunned. She did not learn history very well, so she only knew the more famous 10 great punishments of the Qing dynasty. As for the 5 punishments of the Zhou dynasty, she did not know much about them. Leah laughed coldly and said, "I will bring him to you in the afternoon." Gu Mengmeng hesitated for a moment before nodding. Leah did not say anything else. He kissed Gu Mengmeng's little face and carried her back to the castle. No matter how busy the males of the Gu family were, they would always come back on time to accompany Gu Mengmeng during mealtimes. Aside from the topic. Chapter 1702. Although it was impossible for them to fill their stomachs at the dining table with their appetites, they would not let Gu Mengmeng eat alone. Especially after Leah heard from somewhere that eating alone would lead to a drop in one's immune system, loss of appetite, indigestion, and other complications, the males of the Gu family never missed Gu Mengmeng's 3 meals a day. So, during lunch, Leah told the other members of the family that Gu Mengmeng already knew that he had captured her beast father. Only then did Gu Mengmeng know that it was a group crime and she was the only one who was kept in the dark. Leah understood Gu Mengmeng too well. As long as there was a slight change in her expression, he would be able to tell 80% of the reason. Wagging his tail, he leaned on Gu Mengmeng's shoulder in a fawning manner and said, "Mengmeng, after I came over, I learned a new phrase: the law does not punish the masses. Even if you are angry with me and don't care about me anymore, it can't be that none of the males in the family can make you care about them. As long as there is one that you can't bear to do, then I will have the leeway to beg for mercy." So, I dragged all the males in the family down with me. Tell me, am I not smart? Gu Mengmeng slapped Li's head and did not know whether to laugh or cry. You still have the cheek to say that? You've led the 3 of them astray with those mean moves of yours. Leah shrugged his shoulders and said innocently, how can that be? Elvis used to be mean with me, he's not much nicer than me when he's mean. Not to mention Snake, this deity is someone who had shocked the entire beast world for 1,000 years. When he died, little shit accompanied you to the deep sea and the ocean tribes were still talking about him. How cruel, heartless, and bloodthirsty he was. Compared to him, I'm just like a child in the presence of an adult. If we're talking about being led astray, probably only Gregory is considered a clean one. He was implicated by me. As Leah said that, he looked up at Gregory. Gregory, who had been silent all this while, opened his mouth and said, It's not implicated, it's my duty to avenge you. But if it was me, I would probably just catch them high up in the sky, throw them down and order the birds to eat them in the sky. But this is far less satisfying than Lee's way of handling things. So I took the initiative, willingly and wholeheartedly supported Leah. Gu Mengmeng face-bombed. This method of splitting the food among a group of birds was not any better, really. But she also knew that Grace would say such a thing, nothing more than the relationship of family status. Gregory was only a guardian beast. Since the other 3 men of the Gu family had already reached an agreement, he had no right to object. Gu Mengmeng waved her hands, gesturing for them to stop. She really had no interest in listening to the Gu family men sharing their experiences in 100 ways to torture people. It was enough to have Leah, the scheming and black-bellied fellow. Was there really no need to gather 4 of them and form a black-bellied alliance to play mahjong? Oh right, after this matter is settled, I need to trouble Elvis with something. Leah smiled and waved his hands in front of Elvis. Mengmeng is not happy that I touched other females and thinks that my hands are dirty. So after I kill the 3 of them, you, my first partner, will help me chop off my hand. Upon hearing this, the other 3 males' eyes shone with envy. Lee's face was also filled with pride, as if he was in the spring breeze. Aside from the topic, you're tuning into the Dreamy Love Stories YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.